This one is a sequel to the first one. If you guys remember Gary Brecka is back. He's the co-founder and chief human biologist of 10X Health Systems. He is a freaking guy that basically can look at your blood and tell you when you're going to die and be right within about, what, a week?
Month.
Imagine getting a blood test from someone that can literally look at your blood, and if you don't change what you're doing, can anticipate how long your lifespan will be and be correct within about a month time. Now, last time you were here, dude, your phones blew up and your website blew up. Are we prepared for this visit?
We're prepared for this one.
If people want what we're going to talk about and they want to get a blood test, where do they go?
They go to my Instagram at Gary Brecka, GaryBrecka.
Okay, guys. So listen, trust me. And these aren't expensive tests.
No.
They're basically lifesavers,
No
I like
question.
to call. So last time, dude, a lot of people called in. I'm sure you freaking had a lot of different results happen. My blood that you saw, you said was damn near miraculous.
Virtually perfect, yeah. I mean, you're significantly younger biologically than you are chronologically.
Now, what do you think that is? Because, dude, I was drinking, smoking, partying, eating.
See, this is generally not the best way to recommend things to your audience, but, you know, genetics play a role. But clearly you're not abusing yourself as bad as you make it out to be, because liver inflammation was low, the level of liver poisons was low, your kidney inflammation was low, your filtration rates through the kidney were through the roof, the levels of kidney poison were very low. You had a very strong immune profile, meaning like your white blood cell profile showed a very strong immune system. Things like PSA were very low, which are other markers of inflammation.
We got my labs.
Yeah, we got your labs and we got your gene test.
Oh, beauty. So yeah. Let's, because we promised on the last episode that we would come back and talk about when I'm going to die and what my shit looked like. So based on those labs, talk about it.
So these were done, December, October of last year. When I was way
less shape than I am now.
Yeah, October of last year. So things look really good. You know, when you go through labs, and for the record, I'm not a physician. I'm not licensed to practice medicine. I'm a human biologist, so I'm not giving medical advice. I have a whole team of physicians that give medical advice, but I am not one of those people. But when you look at a lab, you start with something called the CBC, which is where you just count up the contents of the blood. How many white blood cells do you have? How many red blood cells do you have? This section of the labs is really important because it tells me a couple of things. It tells me how strong your immune system is. I can look at your white blood cell profile, right? Neutrophils, lymphocytes, monocytes, something called eosinophils. We look at this profile, but then more importantly, I take a section of the labs and we look at RBCs, red blood cells, and hemoglobin, because everything that you perceive about energy is nothing more than oxygen in your blood. If you told me, Gary, I had a lot of energy today, physiologically what you're saying is, I had a lot of oxygen in my blood today. So if oxygen equals energy, which it does, then if I want to raise your energy level, I need to raise your blood oxygen level. And the way that we do that is improve red blood cell count and hemoglobin. Like, think of a red blood cell as a tennis ball, and hemoglobin is like a fluid inside that tennis ball. Well, it's inside that fluid that oxygen is bound. And this kind of stuff hides in plain sight on labs, right? Your red blood cell count's in the normal range, but it's really, really, really low. Your hemoglobin level's in the normal range, but it's really, really, really low. And now you're tired and you don't sleep well. See, you would think the opposite. You would think that people that are really exhausted would sleep the best, right? But the opposite is true. People that are the most exhausted sleep the worst, because it's related to the same thing, low levels of blood oxygen.
So how do you increase your red blood cells? So
you balance your hormones, right? Because in men and women, the hormone testosterone, its primary role is not male characteristics. It's not facial hair, aggression, big muscles. In men and women, the primary role of testosterone is to put pressure on the bone marrow to create new red blood cells. It's called erythropoiesis. So if you are deficient in testosterone, you are very likely deficient in red blood cells and hemoglobin. So by moving testosterone into the normal range, into the optimal range, you can elevate red blood cells and hemoglobin. And by the way to do that is not always with hormone therapy. I would say 40 to 50% of our patients that qualify for hormone therapy are not on hormones, right? They're on raw materials. I mean, this is what I've dedicated the balance of my adult lifetime to, is the study of the human body and the physiology behind what happens when you take certain raw materials out of the human body. Well, you get what appears to be pathology and disease. Like, for example, the hormone testosterone is made from something called DHEA. DHEA is made from something called vitamin D3. So if I pull vitamin D3 and DHEA out of the body, I can collapse my hormone level, and I don't have any problem with hormones, right? In order to raise it, I just put those raw materials back into the human body, vitamin D3, DHEA, and very often you see hormone levels like testosterone rise back to the normal range.
By the way, vitamin D3 is what I take a lot.
Good.
And
yeah, you were 123 on your labs, if you don't mind me.
Yeah, is that
saying
good?
That. That's very good. I don't have an issue with it being over. The range is from 30 to 100. Most people are below 30. Most people are clinically deficient in vitamin D3.
That's why COVID hit those people hard.
Yeah, that's why COVID disproportionately affected minorities. It had nothing to do with their minority status. It had to do with the pigment of their skin.
Do you think whoever created that did that on purpose? Oh, now we're getting freaking banned.
No, actually, I mean, if you think about it, they're just the immune system suffers when you deplete vitamin D3, right?
But everyone should be on D3.
Everyone should be on D3.
Now, do you need a K2?
You should take it with vitamin K2. 5,000 IUs of D3 with about 80 micrograms of K2. Remember, D3, amongst other things, is a calcium transport molecule. So I want the calcium to go into the bone, not into the arterial wall. So vitamin K2 will make sure that that calcium makes its way into the bone and not into the arterial wall.
Yeah, so don't just go out and get D3, folks. Get D3 with K2. They sell it with K2, too.
Yes.
That's the one I take.
They sell it with K2. Minimum 5,000 IUs. 1,000 IUs or 2,000 IUs.
10,000 a day.
Yeah, most people should be on 10,000, but that's what you want to get blood work done for. That's what we put you on.
So, you know, obviously people are listening. What if they feel good? Everything's fine, but could there still be looming trouble in their blood?
Well, when you say people feel good, that's their perception, right? I mean, most people have accepted such an erosion of their baseline sense of normalcy. They've accepted a baseline sense of normalcy that is so far below their optimal level that they have not even realized it. You know, a lot of times after we see patients, they'll call me, go, "Oh my God, Gary, I feel amazing." And I always say, well, you don't really feel amazing. You just feel normal. That's what normal's supposed to feel like. You just forgotten how good normal feels. So if you're sleeping decently and you know, you're pretty happy with your physique and, you know, your libido's decent and you don't feel like you have brain fog and you got a healthy response to exercise and, you know, decent waking energy, you don't feel like your cognitive function is suffering, you could still be 60% of where your optimal state is. Look, if you look at Grant Cardone, for example, it was before I started treating him. If you go back on his Instagram 4 years, he looked 15 years older 4 years ago than he does today. Because now his blood work's dialed in perfectly. He doesn't have any nutrient deficiencies in his blood. Most people are running around just kind of supplementing for the sake of supplementing. I'm not a big believer in just supplementing for sake of supplementing.
Do you sell those big oxygen tank things?
We do. That's a game changer.
See, because if oxygen makes it and you breathe in oxygen while you're working out.
Oh, the presence of oxygen is the absence of disease.
How do I get one of those oxygen things?
I'll send you a link to get one. It's called the HyperMax O2 system. It's called exercise with oxygen therapy. So first you lay on a PEMF mat, pulse electromagnetic field. Looks like a yoga mat, right? You lay on this mat and it runs low Gauss current through the body, about the same current as the surface of the earth. And what this will do is it'll alkalize all 32 trillion cells in the human body in about 16 minutes. I put mine right in my bed and I set a timer on it so it actually goes off while I'm sleeping. You don't even notice it. So when you wake up, all that EMF frequency is blown out of your body, right? Right now you've got 5G, EMF, dirty EMF frequency. And by the way, the shoe has not dropped on 5G frequency yet. Stay tuned because that shoe is going to drop pretty hard. When we start analyzing the impact on cellular function. So having a PEMF mat will not only blow these frequencies out of your body, but it will alkalize all 32 trillion cells in the body.
And disease cannot exist in alkaline states.
Disease does not thrive in an alkaline environment. All cancer has two common characteristics. One, it's DNA replication run amok. All cancer is aberrant DNA replication. And all cancer begins in a hypoxic environment, an oxygen-deprived environment. In fact, you know, when I went back and talked about my career as a mortality expert, you know, people said, well, how did you predict so accurately when people were going to die? I said, well, first we predicted the onset of disease, and then we would predict the severity of disease. And the way that we predicted both the onset and the severity of disease was by looking at how well or how poorly your body managed oxygen. Because think about it, every human being leaves this earth the same way. We all die of exactly the same thing. Everyone dies of hypoxia. The definition of death is lack of oxygen to the brain. Now, it might be a gunshot wound, a bus, a heart attack, a stroke. You know, there's lots of reasons why that could happen. But when you can no longer sustain enough oxygen to the brain, that's a definition of death. But we tend to think of them as an event, right? Like something that happens to us. But that's not true. We're all on a hypoxic curve, a predictable curve. You're either managing oxygen very poorly, in which case you're accelerating towards the grave, or you're managing oxygen very well, in which case you're moving very slowly towards the grave. And so the less steep we can make that curve, the further we push out the onset of pathology, of disease, the less severe all pathologies and disease come.
So how do I look in that regard?
Your oxygen transport's excellent here. And I'm not being paid to say that. I mean, your red blood cell count's in a great range. You could probably, you know, use a little blood dump.
A little what?
Blood dump. You
Yeah,
know,
that's what, that was a year ago.
Yeah, this was before you had your blood.
Yeah, we dumped
drain.
it when you were here.
Yeah, if you look at the
How
incidence
often should someone blood dump?
2 to 3 times a year after
so
testing.
I'm 2 to
Probably
3
do.
behind then.
Turning your blood over is one of the healthiest things you can do.
Because I didn't do it since you left. How do you blood dump?
You do an IV, you run 500 mLs of fluid in, you can take the IV off the pole and put it below the level of the heart. It
Yeah,
will
but who
pull
does
the same
that?
amount
Like,
of fluid out.
I ain't doing it
Our
myself.
nurses, our
Are you out of
doctors.
your mind?
Or you can go to Red Cross and donate a pint of blood.
That's it?
Yeah.
Just go donate.
Unless your blood's too thick, then they won't take it. Then we have to write you a script for something called therapeutic phlebotomy, which you actually donate the blood and then they toss it because it's too thick. Because remember what we said about testosterone. Its primary role is to put pressure on the bone marrow to create new red blood cells. Well, now the blood can thicken with red blood cells, right? So we have to get some of those out. If you look at the incidence of cardiovascular disease between men and women, you'll see that men lead women by a huge margin until women stop menstruating. Right after they stop menstruating, there's a parabolic spike in the incidence of cardiovascular disease, and women approximate men in the incidence of cardiovascular disease because they're not turning their blood over anymore.
They're not bloodletting.
They're not bloodletting. So it's very healthy for you to bloodlet. But in any case,
Interesting.
back to the PEMF mat. You lay on this PEMF mat and you get alkaline. See, it's a total fallacy that you can make your blood alkaline by drinking alkaline water. It's like the biggest marketing myth to ever take hold and storm the planet. You can drink alkaline water and not become more acidic, but it will not make you more alkaline. You cannot have the properties that make a cup of water alkaline transfer to a cup of blood and have them also maintain their properties. In other words, if this is salt water and this is water without salt, if I transfer the salt from this glass to this glass, it can't also be here. Can't be in 2 places at one time. So alkalinity is a charge, right? pH stands for potential hydrogen. So if I actually want to make myself more alkaline, I have to expose the body to a charge. That's why earthing and grounding is so good for us. You know, think about the last time that you walked barefoot on the surface of the earth, like bare feet touching bare sand or soil or dirt, not pavement, but grass, soil. You will discharge into the earth. You'll actually change the pH of your body, your tissues, by walking barefoot on the earth or laying on a PEMF mat.
And that's scientifically proven or a bunch of hippie shit?
Oh, no, that's you can use an EMF meter and test it in real time.
See, isn't that weird, though? Doesn't that show you that there's got to be a higher power? Who would have known that the earth itself decharges the humans walking on it?
Yeah.
As long as you're not wearing the shoes.
Oh,
and
earthing,
all the
grounding
shit that the men, like people made.
Yeah.
But like nature in and of itself is amazing.
It's amazing. We get 3 things from Mother Nature. We get magnetism, oxygen, and light. And those 3 things are so important to human function. The magnetism from the earth keeps us alkaline. It grounds us. When we're alkaline, the red blood cells in your bloodstream separate. They start floating away from each other. See, remember, if 2 cells have the same charge, then they can't touch, right? They repel. right? And that's what you want, because you want all that surface area exposed to the blood to bring nutrients in. But once they have opposite charges, they're attracted and they start to stick together and clump up like too many cars trying to take the same exit. Well, if I can make you alkaline in the morning, first thing in the morning, by 8 to 16 minutes on a PMF mat, then all your red blood cells separate. And then you use that hypermax oxygen system. You put that oxygen mask on, it's 95% O2. And while you mildly exercise, you breathe 95% O2 into an alkaline system with all of these red blood cells free floating around. When you power up the mitochondria like that, it is unbelievable how good you feel, your mood, your emotional state, because human beings aren't powered by the food that we eat or the supplements that we take. We're not powered by amino acids or proteins or carbohydrates or minerals or fats or any of those compounds we put in the body. We're powered by something called ATP, right? So eventually all of those nutrients get into the cell. They go into a part of the cell called the mitochondria, and the mitochondria turns it into ATP. 10% of your body weight is mitochondria.
Have you heard of NAD?
Mm-hmm. Nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. What's that?
Is that good to get?
NAD is excellent for you, but you can only do NAD either intravenously or via injection. But orally, you can take a precursor called nicotinamide riboside or nicotinic acid, right? These are B vitamins so that your body can make NAD, right? You actually can't take an NAD plus capsule.
Yeah, but you can get an IV.
You can get an NAD IV.
When my wife and I got the vid, I did the monoclonals and everything, and ivermectin and the whole bit, and it was gone like this, by the way. But my wife got NAD. Well, I was going to do the same thing, but she said after she got it, she had more. I mean, and my wife like has some issues. Like she's always chronically something, but energy wise,
yeah.
But she said, man, she was like, her energy's never been higher, never been better after that NAD. The reason I didn't do it is because when she was getting it, they said your chest can hurt, and she was like, it looked like she was freaking dying. And I'm like, does that hurt? She said it hurt.
They're running it way too fast. They just need to slow the IV drip down. If you give something called trimethylglycine, TMG, which is just a liquid amino acid, TMG. If you give trimethylglycine and run that IV slow, she'll have none of those symptoms. If you run the IV too fast, you're oversaturating those receptors. Right? You got to allow the body to absorb it.
Well, to me, I listen to my body. That's one of my long-time rules. People made fun of me. Now they're wearing braces and freaking they got injuries and they're crippled basically. Yeah. I feel great. I can run and walk, and I have no hip problem, no joint problem, no joint pain. I have no problems. But that's because I listen to my body. If I was at the gym hitting it, and the next day I feel like it's so sore it hurts, that's, to me, I may be wrong, but that's my body saying, don't do that shit.
Oh yeah, joint pain. You want to listen to joint pain. Muscle soreness is great for you. Joint pain is terrible for you.
Muscle soreness.
Yeah, light muscle soreness.
Especially when you get massages when you're a little bit sore. They're the best, dude. But I'm talking about like pain. Like, dude, my elbow shouldn't be feeling painful as I'm lifting a weight.
Yeah, no, those are your muscle origin insertions in the joints. I mean, that's where we get actual pain. Rarely does a muscle create a lot of pain, right? The belly of a muscle.
So I'd put the weight down and not work out for a week. People say, pussy, power through it. Well, guess what? Now they're wearing braces.
Oh yeah, no question.
And those compression bandages. I'm 100% great. So when the NADA hurt, I thought, I ain't doing it. Why? Because if it hurts, that's your body saying, don't do this.
Yeah, no, just slow the dosage down. NAD drips can take 60 to 90 minutes. Well, they should have known to do that. I mean, if you're responsibly running NAD on a patient, you should know that the drip rate is important. Dosage and drip rate are very important.
Another plug for 10X Health System. 10xhealthsystem.com, because someone can go to that and get dialed in on more shit than we're talking about.
Oh, they can go to 10xhealthsystem.com. I mean, they could be a franchise partner of ours. They could of Grant's and mine and Brandon's. They could get blood work done. They could open a 10X Health clinic. We'll help them with
How many have you opened now?
We took 390 applications, and I think we've approved 58 so far. That was just since April.
And they're popping up all over.
Aventura, Naples, California, LA.
They're going to be big one of these days because it's basically true anti-aging.
It really is.
And longevity.
Because, you know, coming from the mortality space, you know, I borrowed a lot of that knowledge from the mortality space. I mean, if you understand what makes people die, then you conversely understand what makes people live. And the sad thing about my previous career was I wasn't allowed to have any contact with the patient or any contact with the treating physician. Now, partially because I'm not licensed to practice medicine, but also because they don't want someone from an insurance company getting involved in the medical care of the patient. But the sad thing is, even if we saw life-threatening drug interactions, we couldn't have any communication with the patient.
That's
so
crazy.
It was terrible. I mean, I felt like I was just sitting behind a thick glass wall, just watching blind people walk into traffic. And, you know, eventually I realized there was human beings on the other side of those spreadsheets. And that's what made me make a conscious decision to leave that career and kind of touch the face of humanity by getting into the wellness space. And then Grant Cardone and Brandon Dawson bought us last September. I don't think the last time I was here, I don't think Grant had acquired us yet.
I don't remember. Maybe.
If it was before September. In any case,
whatever it happened, you know, Grant doesn't buy stupid shit. So
no, he definitely
must
doesn't.
have saw an opportunity.
Yeah.
Well,
so he bought us with. He's got a business genius on board named Brandon Dawson, and that guy can.
Brandon Dawson knows how to scale a business.
He is a smart son of a gun for sure.
And I'm sure they're all in the oxygen bags.
Oh, they're all dialed
in.
Grant uses his red light bed and his oxygen and his PMF every single day.
Yeah,
every single day. He hates to travel when he's away from it.
Dialed in with some of that.
All right.
And if anybody's listening wants dialed in, get a hold of Gary at Gary Brecka. By the way, very simple. Gary.
Yeah,
Gary. Double. You got anything for vision?
I do. GaryBrecka.
Yeah, but you got anything for old eyes?
Well, I mean, a lot of times what happens, you get inflammation in the eye. It actually changes the intraocular pressure. If you return intraocular pressure to normal, you return the eye shape to normal. Now, I don't know if you have an astigmatis or some other ailment, something going wrong with
20/20 vision. It's just, at least the eye doctor said, as you get older, it stops flexing. And when it flexes microscopically, you're focusing. So basically, the older you get, the less it will flex and focus. Because he said I had 20/20, and I'm like, dude, I need readers. Like, I can't tell if that's 1R or 2.
Yeah, he's talking about intraocular pressure, right? So if the intraocular pressure increases, think of a balloon. If you add air to it, it gets less flexible. If you take air out of it, it will get more flexible.
So the main way to like start this whole party is to get your blood work.
The main thing that you want to do, if you only did one test in your lifetime, you'd want to do the gene test.
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about.
And then the second one you'd want to do is the blood work. You'd want to do this. I don't know if are we on camera?
Yep.
Can they see that? So this is Brad's. Brad has the MTHFR gene mutation. I won't tell you what the nickname is for that gene.
And you asked if it was red or yellow. I see a red and a yellow.
Yeah. So this is a complete inability to process folic acid, right? So you're that doesn't sound like a big deal.
And by the way, my kids might have the same thing, or do. If I do, they do.
100%. If you're red, they are at least yellow. So you get one copy from one parent, one copy from the other parent. MTHFR is the most common gene mutation in the world. 44% of the population has it. Ironically, 44% of the population reports being on an antidepressant at some point in their lifetime. And this, when folic acid, which is the most prevalent nutrient in the human diet, when we take in folic acid, it's in all white flour, white rice, white bread, white pasta, all of our grains,
good for us?
All of our cereals. It's horrible for you.
So you don't want folic acid?
No, we don't want folic acid. Folic acid doesn't occur anywhere naturally in nature.
But does that red say I don't process it?
You do not process it.
That's good.
No, you do not process it, so you can't turn it into the active form that your body needs. You see, there's not a single compound known to mankind, not one, that enters the human body that's used in the format that we put it in. Everything that enters the human body gets converted into its usable form. Right? This conversion is called methylation, right? It's like we pull crude oil out of the ground, but you can't put crude oil directly into your gas tank, right? Because the car doesn't understand that fuel source. Crude oil has to be refined into gasoline. Well, that refining process in the human body is called methylation. And if your methylation is broken, you get things like anxiety, anxiousness, depression, ADD, ADHD, OCD. You have trouble falling asleep because your mind keeps you awake.
Now would I be an anomaly if I said None of those.
No.
Even with a red?
Well, because you're probably not eating a lot of folic acid. I bet your diet is not full of white bagels, white rice, white
a lot of low
pasta,
carb.
white flour. If you were eating a lot of grains, flours, breads, pastas, whites, it would be a disaster for you.
So
it's one of the leading causes of postpartum depression in pregnant females, because sadly what happens is 44% of women have this gene mutation too. And then they get pregnant and the doctor tells them to take high doses of folic acid. Even though folic acid doesn't occur anywhere naturally in nature, it doesn't occur anywhere on the surface of the earth, right? They say, take this unnatural man-made chemical because it'll prevent neural tube defects. Well, 44% of the population can't process it. So when they take 1,400% of the daily allowance of folic acid, they get depressed. And then eventually the pregnancy ends and they stop taking the prenatal vitamin and the symptoms go away. So they blame it on the pregnancy, not on the vitamin. And this is true with so many different conditions in the human body. You know, there are a lot of genetically inherited diseases we call genetically inherited diseases, but no physician can tell you what gene is being passed from generation to generation to cause those diseases to be inherited. And if there isn't a gene associated with it, well, then it's not genetic. And we've mapped the entire human genome. There are no genes in the human body we're unaware of. So if there was a gene that caused a specific disease, we'd know that. Like the Brecka gene, you know, predisposes women to breast cancer. But
that's close to the Brecka gene.
It's close to the Brecka gene.
which will apparently cause a squeezing sensation in the breast.
Squeezing, come in Tokyo. Boy, we just really went off. Can we cut this part out? Is this live?
Hey, so, well, number one, the pills you sent me.
Yes.
The 5-methylfolate. Yeah, the 5-methylfolate. So I just start taking one of those.
You call them the 5 motherfucker pills.
Yeah.
It's 5-MTHF.
Yeah. Well, I call that the motherfucker gene.
It is the motherfucker gene.
So I got the motherfucker gene. So these pills, if I take it, then now I will process folic acid as it should be.
It's not that you'll process folic acid. Is that we're not going to give you crude oil. We're going to give you gasoline. In other words, since your body can't refine folic acid into methylfolate, we're just going to give you methylfolate.
But should I stop? Should I take in as low amounts as I can?
Yes, I would take in as little folic acid as you can. Think about this. You know, when we started spraying the grain supply in 1992, the U.S. federal government decided we would spray our entire grain supply with folic acid, this man-made chemical. And so all grains, all rice, all flour, we don't call it sprayed with folic acid. We call it fortified or enriched. Right. So if you spin a box of crackers around, you see the words fortified or enriched, that means sprayed with folic acid. Okay. So now let's take a child, 6, 7, 8 years old, 9 years old, and they're getting ready for school in the morning. They have this gene mutation and you've pumped them full of folic acid laden foods. Think about what we feed kids: Pop-Tarts, white bagels, Cocoa Puffs, cereals, right? Any of those things. Now you just dumped folic acid into their body. And you wonder why it's a full contact sport to get the kid in the car to go to school. And then by the time they get to school, the teacher's calling and saying, hey, little Johnny can't pay attention. He doesn't concentrate, he doesn't focus, he doesn't finish his assignments, he's not following directions. He's got ADHD. We need to bring in the Ritalin to control this. And the truth is ADHD is not even an attention deficit disorder at all. It's an attention overload disorder. Kids and adults that have this condition of attention deficit or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, they don't have a problem paying attention. They have a problem paying attention to too many things. And in our mind, we not only create thought, but we also dismantle thought. It is just as important to be able to dismantle the neurotransmitters of thought as it is to create the neurotransmitters of thought. Because if I am creating thought at a faster rate than I'm dismantling it, then I have too many conversations going on in my head, right? So if you have ADD, then you're thinking about a job that you're working on and your friend walks up and you start talking to your friend while you're thinking about this job you're working on, and then you notice a logo on their jacket and that reminds you of a vacation you want to take. So now you're thinking about a job, talking to your friend, looking at the logo, thinking about a vacation you want to take. And all of a sudden your friend goes, hey man, my grandma passed away on Sunday. And you go, that's a great idea. Because you're not tuned into that conversation because your mind's everywhere else. And then what the modern medicine wants to do is give you an amphetamine to speed up, race the central nervous system to match the pace of the mind, instead of putting just amino acids into the bloodstream that allow the mind to naturally quiet itself. You know, this gene mutation right here, COMT, if that gene mutation is red, you are highly susceptible to ADD, ADHD, OCD, depressive symptoms.
Yellow's on the way to red?
Yellow's on its way to red, but it'll never be red in your case. Once it's yellow, it's always yellow. So,
so what would make that flawless like my blood?
Well, you can't fix the genes. You can supplement for their function, right? So I can't fix those genes. The genes you're born with are the genes you die with, but you can supplement for their function. If MTHFR converts folic acid into methylfolate, you just supplement with methylfolate. There's certain forms of B12 in the middle here that if people are supplementing with the wrong form of B12, they're destroying their gut function, right? The most common form of B12 in the world is entirely synthetic. It's man-made. We make it from hydrogen cyanide. It's called cyanocobalamin. It's a cyanide-based B12. I mean, it's hard to believe that we're allowed to make vitamins out of hydrogen cyanide in this country, but we are. Flintstone vitamins have cyanocobalamin.
So do Airborne.
So do Celsius energy drinks, right? That's why, what's that? Emergency. Yeah, Emergency has cyanocobalamin, cyanide-based B12. So when you put this form of B12 into the body, it drops off the cobalt metal, the cobalamin, right, which is B12 is a metal, a light metal. It drops off the metal into the cell, and then you're left with a floating cyanide molecule. Now, the body doesn't recognize that. So in order for cyanide to leave the system, it binds to oxygen and other light metals and takes them out of the system. It's a thief, right? Like folic acid is a thief. But we've been led to believe, oh, folic acid prevents neural tube defects in pregnant women, and folic acid is a necessary part of the human diet. There's a recommended daily allowance of folic acid. I don't know how we have a recommended daily allowance of something that was never on the face of the earth until a laboratory made it. I mean, how could it be essential for health if we actually made it in a lab?
Can those pills be taken by my kids?
Oh, no question they can be taken by your kids. It works with
Any
gummies all the way down to 2 years old, as they can chew and swallow.
But I mean, is there like an amount you prescribe to me?
It's appropriate for their
So you don't
weight.
give your kids your D5-methylamine?
No. In fact, you know, right on here, I got a chart that actually
give
gives
your
you the
kids
ages.
tested, correct?
It says age 4 to 8, 9 to 13, 14 to 18. You should definitely have your kids tested. You only do the test once in your life. Most of us are supplementing just for the sake of supplementing.
So gene test, folks. I'm telling you right now, go get a gene test.
That's life-changing. And
you don't go to 10X Health Systems for that. You go to @GaryBrecka on Instagram and DM his ass, right?
Yeah, just DM me and
I can't believe you don't have a page or something, though.
No, you can get it at 10X Health System, too.
Oh, you can? Okay.
Yeah, either one.
Well, I just want to make sure people have the clear tactical to because a lot of this is interesting. People are like, yeah, that might be me. I got kids like that, and then
if you've got kids with
get
ADD, ADHD, OCD, if you've got depression, if you have anxiety,
my little girl has anxiety. Like, dude, I'm telling you, sometimes I think to myself, like what is she doing?
No, she has a gene mutation that doesn't allow her to methylate something called homocysteine. I'll tell you 3 things about her anxiety.
Get her a
without
gene
even
test.
No question.
And then you guys will prescribe her the right
vitamins,
amount of stuff, and then she'll take
her
it,
weight,
and her problem will go away.
No question. If you ask somebody that's suffering from anxiety 3 questions, you can prove that it's not coming from a cluster of symptoms. It's not coming from their outside environment. It's coming from their physiology. So the first question you ask them is, have you suffered from anxiety on and off throughout your entire lifetime? Almost always they will say yes. And then the second question is, can you point to the specific trigger that causes it? Can you always just point to the specific trigger that's causing your anxiety? And the majority of the time they'll say no. I can just wake up in the morning feeling anxious. I can be driving home from work on an otherwise innocuous day and I can be overwhelmed with anxiety.
And that must be a crazy feeling too.
It's terrible because it drives them crazy because they don't know what's causing it. I mean, they can be in a calm environment like this. You know, my son's sitting there, you and I are just shooting the shit, and all of a sudden I'm just overwhelmed with anxiety. It doesn't make sense to me psychologically, because I go, well, there's nothing for me to be afraid of right now. Why do I have this fight or flight response?
This looming death feeling.
Yeah, but it's a lack of raw material in the human body. When you start pulling raw materials out of the human body, which by the way can be put back in, then you get the appearance of all kinds of pathology and diseases: hypertension, ADD, ADHD, manic depression, bipolar, depression, anxiety, anxiousness. All of these conditions that we think happen to us are actually happening within us because you deplete the body of raw materials. You know, we define depression in this country as an inadequate supply of serotonin, right? So if your serotonin is low, you're by definition depressed. So you would think the treatment would be to raise serotonin, but that's not what we do. We take people that are depressed and we put them on SSRIs, serotonin reuptake inhibitors, right? And what these do is they ration what little serotonin you have, right? So by definition, it never raises serotonin. So by definition, it never ends depression. So antidepressants by their own definition will never end depression. They will just keep it from getting worse. They'll keep you from going off a cliff. So if we understood that serotonin is a raw material, it's made in the gut. 90% of the serotonin in our body is right here. If it's not here, it can't be here. So if I want to end depression, I need to turn the serotonin factory back on in the gut by putting the raw materials, B complex, methylated folates, B vitamins, hydroxycobalamin, L-methionine, zincs, magnesiums, back into the human body so it can produce neurotransmitters.
Is that part of all that shit you sent me?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So all I got to do is take it.
All you have to do is take it. We're not adding anything to your bloodstream that's not already in your blood right now. We're just changing the form and the amount, right? That's it.
Hormonal balance.
Hormonal balance.
And the body works fine.
That's it.
So the gene test, folks, I would go and get that gene test for you and your kids, and then the labs, the blood works after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the gene test is like $599. You do it once in your lifetime.
Once in your lifetime, because this shit don't change. You just need to figure out what you
Never
are.
Changes.
So
you only
know
need to
what
do it
you're
once.
deficient, and then that'll solve all kinds of depression, anxiety, all kinds of issues that you would think, you know, you've been taking medicine for. You don't.
Not
have to
only
take
that,
anymore.
you'll know exactly how to supplement for the balance of your lifetime. You won't be guessing on, do I need St. John's wort and curcumin and CoQ10? And
Does that increase longevity?
certainly increases longevity. If you look at methylation and longevity, if you just Google that, you'll see that perfecting the DNA replication process is a recipe for longevity.
You got a 10X Health in Vegas?
No, but we would love to open one here. You want to open one with us?
Yeah, well, it depends on what it costs, but yeah. But I'm also in Nashville. You got one there?
No, not yet.
See, maybe I'll open here and there.
That'd be great.
And the dude you're going to see here in a minute, we won't mention any names.
No.
I bet you he'd open one like this.
I bet he will too.
Dude, I appreciate you swinging in. I'd keep talking to you.
Awesome.
But you got to go or you're going to miss your next appointment. Folks, if you go to the last episode, we got a little deeper in stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So go hunt down the last Gary Brecka episode and do yourself a favor, do your family a favor. Go get the gene test, go get the blood test, and start taking care of yourself. Until next time, keep it real.
Dropping bombs with the real Bradley. Subscribe now.